Hi everyone, I'm Abby. I seem to be working on a lot of tartan skirts recently. Today's variety is a flannel circle skirt that's about calf length. I wanted something really full and twirly compared to my longer walking skirt. I couldn't find enough fabric in the platitudes fabric like I used for my walking skirt, so I had to turn to the flannel section of Joann's. For about $18, I found about 4.5 yards of this green and blue fabric. While working with this fabric, I found it to be more frustrating than the platitudes fabric. And it's also printed on the top rather than woven, so the underside is white. Either way, $18 is nothing to sneeze at, so I don't really mind. Let's get sewing! For a circle skirt pattern, all you need is a little math, some paper, and a long ruler. To be honest, I started with just an arbitrary length and measured where the waist was and realized I had it too small. I wanted a waist measurement of 32 inches, so 1/4 of that is 8 inches. I redid the waist to measure 8 inches, and then I measured 28 inches down, so that's how long I want my skirt to be. The fabric is 44 inches wide, so I have to fold it to get my pattern on the fold to create 1/2 of the circle skirt. This flannel stretched in the wash. I washed and dried it like normal, as it's cotton and I wanted it to shrink. I spent a lot of time trying to line up the tartan pattern with itself. I got frustrated and called it good enough. It is just a round hem skirt, so really a little fluctuation isn't going to matter. I just wanted to pattern match a bit on the seam if I could. Once I got it lined up, I laid my pattern on the fold and pinned it down. When cutting, I created a 1/2 inch seam allowance around the whole thing. For the second side, I folded the other side of the fabric and lined it up again. This time I just laid the pattern piece with the fabric attached on top of it. It doesn't move because the flannel sticks to itself, so I just cut it without pinning. I knew I wanted to use self fabric to create the hem, so I just used the curve of the fabric that I just cut to cut a hem binding of vaguely 2.5 inches, which would turn into about 1.5 inch hem binding. I just kind of eyeballed it and trued it up to the narrowest part later. I used the rest of the fabric to create the waistband piece and the pocket. I used the pattern piece for the waistband of my walking skirt since I knew it was the right length for a 32-inch waistband. For the pocket, I only want one this time. The other side will have a zipper. I used the pattern I created for my walking skirt and laid it on the fold of the fabric and pinned and cut it out. I found I had a large triangle of fabric left, so I trimmed that up to create a small scarf to wear with my skirt. I cut lining and interfacing for the waistband out of the polycotton white fabric that I used for my walking skirt. I just cut and ripped them with the right width and cut them down to size. First thing, I pinned the seams of the 2 half circles together, leaving the space for the pocket and the zipper on each side. I also pinned the waistband to the interfacing. I machine sewed the pocket together on two sides, then serged those as well. I machine basted the waistband to the inner facing. It stretched a bit. I think I would have been better off hand basting, but it worked well enough. I pinned the pocket to the skirt seam. This time I measured 4.5 inches down. This is a much better spot for the pocket to sit. I pinned right sides of the skirt to the inside of the pocket, both sides. I machine sewed the pocket seams first, then went back and sewed the long seams on both sides. I realized that there's a way that I want to install the zipper that's a little easier, so I machine sewed up the entire seam on the other side. I took a break and hemmed up the triangle scarf that I cut from the scraps. I pressed a 1/4 inch into the lining of the waistband, and I ironed the waistband as well to get rid of wrinkles. I also took the time to press open all the skirt seams that I've created so far. I pinned the pocket support in place here. I used the rest of the corset boning channel tape that I had, but you could use ribbon, twill tape, bias tape, etc. I hand sewed the support to the pocket and then pinned the top to the skirt waist. I pinned the lining onto the waistband. Here I pinned the zipper onto the closed seam of the skirt at the top, leaving about 1/2 inch for the seam at the top. I hand sewed the zipper in place through all the layers of the fabric. I find this an easier method as I hate zipper foots, but you could easily do this on the machine. I then came back and cut the stitching out right where the zipper is. I hand sew the little bit at the end to bind where the seam started. I decided to hand bind all the seams of the skirt this time instead of using the overlock machine. I folded under and hand felled all the seams. It didn't take that much time in front of the TV. The current show I'm watching is Bulldog. I stitched the zipper down as well to hide the raw edges. I machine stitched the waistband to the lining. I clipped the corners and serged the edges. I flipped the waistband right side out and pressed it. I machine stitched 2 of the hem binding edges together and serged them. In order to attach the waistband of the skirt, I ran 2 gathering stitches along the waist of the stretchy flannel, one on each half. I divided the waistband into quarters, leaving the 2 inches for the tab. I divided the skirt waistband into quarters as well. I pinned at each of these spots, then I gathered each of those quarters to fit into the area of the waistband. I won't create actual gathers, but it helps the fabric lay flat as I pin in place. Then I go through and machine stitch the waistband in place. I press the waist of the skirt up. I also took this time to iron the rest of the skirt for wrinkles. I pinned the lining of the waistband down. Using a hand whip stitch and green thread, I hand bind the lining in place. It's time for the hem! If I cared enough, I would have hung the skirt up for a day or 2 and let the bias part stretch a bit, but I really don't care, so I skipped that step. I pinned all of the binding pieces that I created onto the edge of the hem, right sides to right sides. I had just enough, so I sewed the last side of the hem binding together and trimmed it, and pinned the piece down as well. Then I machine stitched the entire hem, ½ inch from the edge. Then I flipped the binding out and machine understitched 1/4 inch from the edge. I pressed the hem, then flipped it up and pressed the hem binding. Finally, I pressed about ½ inch of the hem binding under. I pinned the entire hem binding down. It's a lot of hem! And I hand whip stitched the entire thing down, back to sitting in front of the TV. It really only took a couple hours or so. You could machine stitch this if you wanted. I just like having the invisible hem look. I added 2 hooks and eyes to the waistband to finish off the top of the zipper. Later, I actually went back and added a snap on the tab. It really helps everything sit nicely in place. And that's it! I have a nice long super twirly skirt. Thank you for joining me today as I made my flannel tartan circle skirt. I usually make my circle skirts shorter, so it's nice to have a longer winter variety. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. If you like sewing tutorials and costume fun, be sure to subscribe. Happy sewing! Click, Diana. Should we get sewing? Let's get sewing! Hello, people. Yes, I want the tea. Right, Diana? Is that what you're saying?